Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. Buckle up, as it's a long one, and don't forget to listen to the end of the story to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and please like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 42 female, am a mother to my amazing daughter Sarah, 18 female, who is about to head off to college soon. I've been her primary caregiver and provider for most of her life, and she's the absolute light of my life. Sarah has always been a hard-working, smart kid, and she got into a great university with a partial scholarship. I've worked hard to save up a college fund for her so she won't have to worry about student loans and can focus on her studies. I had Sarah with my ex-husband, Jake, 44 male, who I divorced about 12 years ago when she was 6. We had a decent marriage in the early years of our marriage, but things went downhill fast when I found out that Jake had been cheating on me for about a year with a woman named Claire, now 38 female. The cheating, of course, wasn't the only issue. It was the lies, the deceit, and ultimately, the lack of respect for me and our daughter. Jake eventually left to be with Claire, and I was left picking up the pieces of our lives. Jake didn't want much to do with Sarah after the split, which absolutely broke my heart. He barely put in any effort to see her or support her emotionally or financially. And to make matters worse, Claire was constantly in his ear, manipulating him and telling him that he shouldn't have to pay child support for Sarah because he needed to focus on his new life. She even went so far as to convince him that I was using Sarah as a way to trap him into paying for something he didn't want to be responsible for anymore. Like, what the actual hell? I'm not one to sit back and let someone take advantage of me, so I took Jake to court to secure child support for Sarah. Despite his reluctance, the court ordered him to pay. But guess what? He still barely paid anything. He would skip payments, make excuses, and sometimes disappear for months at a time without sending a dime. At first, I would chase him down and try to get him to stick to the payments. But after a while, I realized it wasn't worth my energy. I worked 2 jobs for years to make sure Sarah had everything she needed. It was exhausting, but I did it, and I'm proud of the life I built for us. Fast forward to a few years after the divorce. Jake and Claire had a child of their own, a little boy named Aiden, now 10 male. I won't lie, knowing that he was starting a whole new family while completely neglecting his responsibilities to Sarah really hurt me. But over the years, I came to terms with it. Sarah and I had our own life, and we didn't need Jake, or so I thought. Recently, something happened that completely blew my mind. It all started when Sarah graduated high school a few months ago. She had a beautiful ceremony, and I was so proud of her. Jake didn't even bother showing up, and honestly, neither Sarah nor I were surprised. We've grown used to him being absent from the important moments in her life. After the ceremony, I posted some pictures online showing off how proud I was of my girl. We celebrated the milestone, and things were great. That's when the chaos began. A few weeks after Sarah's graduation, I received an unexpected message from Claire. Now, keep in mind, this woman and I have had almost no contact since the divorce. The few times I've had to deal with her, it's been through lawyers or court hearings about child support. So seeing her name pop up in my inbox was a huge red flag. The message basically said, "Hi, we need to talk about something important regarding Aiden and Sarah." My first thought was, what the hell do these people want now? But out of curiosity, I agreed to meet with her and Jake to see what this important matter was. We met up at a coffee shop, and right from the moment they sat down, I could tell something was off. Jake looked uncomfortable, and Claire had this smug look on her face that immediately set off alarm bells in my head. After a few awkward pleasantries, Claire finally cut to the chase. She said, "We've been having some financial difficulties lately, and we're really struggling to make ends meet. Jake's hours have been cut at work, and I lost my job a few months ago. Things are really tight for us right now, and we're at risk of losing our home." I didn't say anything at first. I just sat there waiting for her to get to the point, because honestly, I had no idea why they were telling me this. Then she dropped the bomb. "We were hoping you'd be willing to share half of Sarah's college fund with us, for Aiden." I swear, I nearly choked on my coffee. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman, who had spent years keeping Jake from paying child support for Sarah, who had actively tried to alienate my daughter from her father, was now sitting across from me asking for money? For her son? The same son that Jake has been doting on while ignoring Sarah's existence? I was stunned. I asked her to repeat herself because I genuinely thought I had misheard. But no, she meant every word. She wanted me to take half of the money I had saved for my daughter's future and give it to their son, who I had no responsibility for. When I asked her why she thought I would ever do something like that, she had the audacity to say, "Well, Sarah has a scholarship, doesn't she? She won't need all that money for school. But Aiden doesn't have anything, and we're really struggling right now." I was absolutely floored by the entitlement. I couldn't believe that they thought this was a reasonable request. I turned to Jake and asked him if he really agreed with this, and he just sat there looking sheepish. He didn't say a word. Claire did all the talking for him, as usual. I asked her why Jake couldn't just step up and provide for Aiden himself. After all, he had barely contributed to Sarah's life, so he should have plenty of money to support his new family, right? Claire got defensive and started making excuses about how Jake had been going through a tough time and how everyone makes mistakes, but that they were trying to move forward as a family. I sat there in disbelief, trying to wrap my head around the sheer nerve of these two. After everything they had put me and Sarah through, they seriously thought they were entitled to her college fund? Then I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation hit me, and I just laughed. Claire's face turned bright red, and Jake looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole. I could tell they weren't expecting that reaction. Through my laughter, I told them, "You must be out of your minds if you think I'm giving you a single cent of Sarah's money. She worked hard for that scholarship, and I worked hard to save up for her future. If you're struggling, that's not my problem. Maybe Jake should have thought about his responsibilities before abandoning his daughter and refusing to pay child support." Claire tried to argue with me, but I cut her off. I told them that not only would they be getting nothing from me, but I was also going to be filing a lawsuit to collect the back child support Jake owed me. At this point, he was tens of thousands of dollars behind on payments, and I was done letting him get away with it. Jake finally spoke up and tried to beg me not to take him to court, saying that it would ruin them financially. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "That's not my problem. Maybe you should have thought about that before abandoning your daughter." Claire got even more upset, accusing me of being heartless and vindictive. She said that I was punishing Aiden for something that wasn't his fault. I told her that Aiden wasn't my problem, and that maybe they should have been more responsible for their finances if they didn't want to end up in this situation. The conversation ended with me walking out of the coffee shop, while Claire was still ranting about how I was selfish and how they were just trying to do what's best for their family. A few days later, I got a call from Jake, begging me not to take him to court. He said that Claire was threatening to leave him if they lost the house, and that he didn't know what to do. He tried to guilt me by saying that I was ruining Aiden's life by going after the child support. I told him that it was his own actions that had led to this situation, and that I wasn't going to back down. I'm currently in the process of suing him for the back child support he owes, and I fully intend to see it through. As for Sarah, she's fully aware of the situation and is completely on my side. She knows how hard I've worked to provide for her, and she's just as disgusted by Jake and Claire's behavior as I am. We've had a lot of discussions about the importance of standing up for ourselves and not letting people take advantage of us, and I'm proud of the strong, independent woman she's become. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for laughing in their faces and refusing to give them any of my daughter's college fund, and for suing Jake for the child support he owes me? Holy crap! The audacity of those two! OP has been raising her daughter on her own, while her father has been completely absent and neglectful. And now they think they're entitled to her college fund? That's insane. Claire sounds like she's been manipulating Jake from the start, and it's really sad that he's let her do that at the expense of his own child. OP has every right to protect the money she has saved for Sarah. College is expensive, even with a scholarship, and Sarah deserves every penny of that fund. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole, and I'm actually shocked that they thought they could pull this off. First of all, you've been more than generous by not dragging Jake to court sooner for the child support. He owes you that money, and it's long overdue. It's not your fault if it puts him and Claire in financial trouble. That's what happens when you neglect your legal and moral responsibilities for over a decade. As for their ridiculous request about the college fund, you have zero obligation to share Sarah's money with their child. The fact that they even asked shows a complete lack of respect for both you and Sarah. Claire's "he'll be homeless" threat is just manipulation. You've already done so much for Sarah on your own, and you don't owe Jake or Claire anything. Not the a-hole, not by a long shot. As a fellow mom who's been putting money aside for her kids' college, I completely understand where you're coming from. You've worked hard to provide for Sarah, and no one, especially your ex's affair partner, has any right to tell you what to do with that money. It's for Sarah's future, period. And honestly, Jake and Claire's financial problems aren't your concern. If they're struggling, that's on them. Claire knew exactly what she was doing when she pushed Jake to abandon his responsibilities to Sarah, and now she's reaping the consequences. It's ironic that the woman who didn't want him paying child support now wants part of Sarah's college fund. Not the a-hole, and I'm honestly gobsmacked by the entitlement here. Jake abandoned his daughter emotionally and financially for over a decade, and now he and Claire have the audacity to demand money for their son? Absolutely not. It's insane that they even thought this was a reasonable request. I'm glad you laughed in their faces, because that's the only appropriate response to such a ridiculous demand. I am a 25-year-old male with two sisters. One, who we will call Mary, is 31. The other, Sam, is 22. Ever since Mary hit university, her life has been a series of catastrophically bad choices. I love her no matter what happens, but she has dropped out of her full ride to university to be with her loser boyfriend, has since been in jail more than once, and is frequently engaged in some pretty hard recreational use, obviously related to the previous point. On the other hand, Sam is a big sweetheart who really has her head on straight. She is studying to be a nurse. 6 months ago, we received the news that a relative of ours had passed away. He left us an inheritance. This was a substantial sum for each of us. In USD, it is a bit into the six-figure range. Since I was mostly debt-free and well off, I decided that instead of receiving his inheritance, it would be better in someone else's hands. I toyed with the idea of giving it to charity, but instead decided to give my portion to Sam after paying off the rest of my student loans. In the end, I gave Sam over $100,000. It was her money to spend how she wanted, but she decided that she would use it and part of her inheritance to buy a brand new Tesla. I wasn't sure about this financial decision, but again, I respected her ability to make her own choices. Mary was furious when she caught wind of what I did. She put the pieces together when she saw Sam in her new luxury car. She too got a large inheritance, but before that was completely broke living in a motel. Now she is trying to start her own business, a nail salon, and said that Sam didn't really need the money to buy a ducking car, while she could have set her life straight. I honestly figured that Mary probably would have just fallen for a scam or spent it all on D or something. She insists that if I had just asked her to make her case, I would have at least given her half. Am I the a-hole for not considering Mary's feelings at all when I gave the money to Sam? Not the a-hole, but you did your sister Sam a huge disservice by not requiring her to see a financial planner to put this money to some long-term good use. Yes, she's free to spend, waste your money as she sees fit. But in this case, Mary was right about wasting it on a car. Irresponsible of you not to guide her better, and dumb of her, because she's a 22-year-old kid, to make such a poor decision. Fool and his money. Overall, not the a-hole, but you are an a-hole for sending a 22-year-old a large amount of money and not requiring that she see a financial advisor of some sort. I'm 21 and a college student, and neither I nor anyone I know would know what to do with an extra $100,000 on top of a large inheritance. It doesn't matter how smart you are. In your early 20s, you just don't have the life experience most of the time to make good decisions with that amount of money. However, I don't think you're the a-hole for not sending Mary the money. But your lack of understanding why she's hurt does not look good. To her, you're choosing Sam over her. She's right. You should have had Mary and Sam state their cases at least. I realize this is going to sound ridiculous, but here we go. My dad believes we are about to go into a recession, so he gives our son, his only grandson, $12,000 a year to be deposited into a savings account. In addition, my dad is the trustee for my grandmother, who is 101 years old and has lost her mind to Alzheimer's and is being well cared for in a fancy nursing home near my dad. And he gives $14,000 to my brother, my son, and me from her account a year. We are the only descendants, and my dad wants to do this to transfer wealth. So, my 2-year-old son has $10,000 in a 529 from my husband's money, $17,000 in a Wells Fargo account that is money from my dad and my grandmother. My husband has access to this account, and $23K in a Chase account for my dad and my grandmother that my husband does not have access to. My husband has long been severely critical of my dad's policy, which is that we have to keep the money in a savings account. My husband and I have fought a lot about this because I think we can accept the money. We have to be respectful of my dad's wishes. Also, my husband has $130K in a brokerage account invested in stocks and other money in 401K, Roth IRA, etc. My husband really wants a Tesla 3, so instead of selling stock, he took $15K from my son's account, the one he has access to. He did that this morning. I was pretty shocked as he told me that I needed to transfer an additional $10K to him from the Chase account that he doesn't have access to. He said, "You don't think I'm good for it? You don't think I can pay him $25K back in 20 years? It's not like it's going to earn any interest." I was shocked because in his mind, he has 20 years to pay our son back, whereas I would expect that he would pay it back immediately. My husband does make a good salary, but knowing him, I don't think he would pay our son back this year. He always wants to invest. I called my dad, who is threatening to stop these payments to our son. For our son, a loss of $26K a year. My dad said he was shocked that my husband wouldn't ask my dad, and that my dad would prefer to loan him the money himself. I should also mention that my mother was the custodian of my brother's accounts growing up. My brother was given some stock by my grandfather that did really well, and my mom used some of it to buy things for the house. So my dad and I have a really bitter memory of this kind of practice in our family. I don't understand why my husband can't sell some stock. My husband doesn't buy a lot of things for himself, so I support his decision to buy a Tesla, but I don't support his using our son's money. Edited to add. My husband just returned and said he just needs the money for a few weeks until he can finance the car. He said he used the 20-year figure as a ridiculous scenario. He said he would talk to my dad to work it out. I don't like that he did it without talking to me or my dad, but it makes more sense now. Also, my husband hates that money has been in savings accounts because he wants it invested. He is an engineer and hates inefficiency. Your husband stole money from your son. Just so we're super clear on that. If I was your father, I'd start putting money in an account. If I was your father, I'd start putting money in an account that neither of you had access to. I hate boats. I am deathly afraid of boats. Can't stand them. Whenever I'm on one, my legs start to shake and I can't breathe. Now, I don't live in a particularly aquatic town, so it's a pretty easy fear to live with. I just don't get on boats. Everyone in my family knows this, including my stepmom. But yesterday, my dad and my stepmom sat my brother and I down. They said they booked a family cruise for September. I said, no way in hell am I getting on a ducking boat. My stepmom says, I know you don't like boats, but it's a large boat, so you won't even know you're on one. Which is one of the stupidest things I've heard her say. I say, yeah, no, refund my ticket, and I'll go stay with my mom. Stepmom starts bawling and talking about how it's her dream to go on a cruise, which is so BS. Last week it was her dream to own a Tesla, which my dad bought for her. She says that I've ruined the family trip. I say it's not a family trip if she's coming because she's not family, which was a low blow. I take full responsibility for that. But to me, she's still the woman my dad cheated on my mom with. She starts crying even harder and runs into her room and slams the door. My dad is mad at me now, and my brother thinks I was being rude, which is true, I was. But I've been pretty clear that I will not get on a boat. And to clarify, she wants my brother and I to take 2 weeks off of school for this trip. It's my first year of high school and my brother's senior year, so it's kind of important that we don't miss 2 weeks. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I know that comment was mean. I plan on apologizing. I don't get seasick. That's not the issue. I am just terrified of boats. I don't know where it stems from, but I just am. You know, I'm going not the a-hole on this despite the mean comment. You're still in high school and she knows that you're aware that your dad cheated on your mom with her and apparently ended the marriage over it. She ought to be in full humility and helping you work through that, or just staying the heck out of your face. And instead, she's 100% about her and what she wants. She sounds awful, and it's just ridiculous booking a cruise with someone she knows is phobic about boats. Family trip is pretty frickin' rich from someone who helped blow up your family of origin. She's apparently trying to just wave a wand and get everyone to play happy families, and that is just wildly self-involved and unrealistic of her.